Hey, hello there, and welcome to Talking with Tony. Putting up this episode on YouTube. Very excited to have Danny Arp. He's our lead football expert on the Talking with Tony panel, and where are you in LaGrange tonight? Where are you at tonight, Danny?
I am in LaGrange. Yes, I made it home, and I'm doing it from the back porch again, from my back little pool area.
Well, we're going to talk a little Texas and Georgia. They'll be meeting each other. And I got to first say, I'm wearing New York Yankees polo. I'm a bit nervous as we film this. The Yankees, though, are up 1-0, but they won game one at Yankee Stadium 5-2. But they had to use their high leverage relievers to get that victory, including their closer had to get 5 outs. And I don't believe he'll be available for game two. Meanwhile, the Indians, as I still call them, because I don't believe in this Cleveland Guardians, the Indians didn't use any of their high leverage guys. So tonight is going to be a little harder to win. Garrett Cole will throw, but I've been a bit nervous. I just keep looking over at the clock. All right, so it'd be like 7 hours to go, 6 hours to go, 4 hours to go. Now I'm looking, it's like 2.5 hours to go.
Two and
That's
a
when you
half,
know you
yeah.
don't. That's when you live your life vicariously through others. Danny, coming off a week of exciting week of college football, where once again we saw some teams battle some tough games. Georgia gave up 31 points to Mississippi State. That was one of the most alarming things that I saw. And look, they got the win, and Carson Beck is back in contention now for the Heisman Trophy with the effort that he had. They're going to have to play better in Austin. But something tells me as I look ahead first with you to that game, we're going to see the best Georgia has in that game. And when the line came out, Texas -3.5, it has not moved at all, which means Georgia is getting a lot of attention from the professionals right now and from the analysts. It's kind of got a good feeling for me that Georgia's going to show up and give their very best.
Yeah, I mean, I think their game last week, I mean, all their games like have been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde, right? But to start with, it was terrible first half, poured on in the second half. This game was more, solid first half, better first half. Let's put it that way. And then actually a very good opening third quarter. And then it just sort of went sideways, And a lot of us on these defensive backs got a couple of guys back there. What do you got? Everett and, oh, wow, man, my brain's not working. I can't remember the other guy's name. Humphreys, and it's Humphreys at number 12, and they're both struggling a little bit. And I think maybe they can clean up their act with a good week of practice this week, fix some of those mistakes, because those were some bad breakdowns in the past game. And when you're going into Texas to play Ewers and that crew of receivers he has, that's nerve-wracking to an old Georgia Munson like myself. But I do think you're going to see a good game. Here's what I think you'll see, and we'll talk a little more about it later. But I think the key to it is, you brought up Carson Beck being a Heisman candidate, right? And that makes me nervous because Georgia does not pass the ball 48 times. We're not supposed to throw the ball that many times. And we got ETN comes in through the portal, and he gets 11 rushes, meager 38 yards. He pounded out 3.8 yards a carry. That's not Georgia. Georgia's a 5-yard a carry kind of team, 5.8. And if we're not doing that, I don't think we can successfully do it, especially with receivers we got. But we'll talk more about that.
The only thing that I would push back there is you're looking at not having two of the three starters I think they thought they would have coming into the season, or at least in the offseason, because of various arrests and some serious situations that I'm not making light of at all, especially the revelations that came out a little week ago. So to have the success in the passing game that they can still show that they can have, even without some of the key contributors that they were counting on, shows you like really how talented Beck is, and the offensive line. I mean, look, it's amazing. But I agree with you. You got to run the football, and I think we'll see more of the running game in Austin. I got to get your opinions on Ohio State and Oregon. On Sunday morning, I'd gone about 45 minutes without thinking about it, and I was in my church service, and my preacher, Dr. Tony McCullough, who's originally from Ohio, gets into the fact that he was watching college football yesterday, and he goes, as y'all know, I'm originally from Ohio, and I'm watching the Buckeyes and Oregon game, and I just sort of slid down in my seat a little bit because it had been a good 45 minutes since I had forgot about it and how frustrated I was. But, as I look back, if there is a so-called good loss, and I don't like moral victories, I don't like the 12-team playoff, but I don't think that loss Saturday night did anything to hurt Ohio State's chances of the 12-team playoff. The AP voters showed what they thought of them. They dropped them, I think, from number 2 to number 4, and it was just one of those games that went back and forth. And similar to the game in Atlanta against Georgia, Ohio State got in position to win the game with a field goal. But once they were in field goal range, they did nothing to progress down the field to get closer. You remember Stroud's long run against Georgia put them in field goal range. It was first down. They didn't move the ball any further.
No.
Same thing happened Saturday, except they went back because of an offensive pass interference call, a call that I thought was legit, a good call that should have been called. So I think that once again, Ohio State with a different play caller, Ryan Day was calling the plays in Atlanta, and Chip Kelly was calling the plays Saturday night. But my point is that it was a winnable game. It was a game I think they should have won, but they lost. That's an awfully difficult place to play, maybe the hardest place in the country to play. And I think when it's all said and done, probably going to see them again. Ohio State, I don't want to dismiss Penn State. They're undefeated. Ohio State still has to go to Happy Valley and some other games, including that team up north against Michigan. But I do have a feeling that those two teams will meet each other again.
Yeah, I do think they'll meet again, or they could possibly meet again. And I think they will, because that loss will do nothing. You said it exactly right. It's not going to hurt their standings. It didn't hurt them in this first ranking. If it did anything, it probably strengthened it, right? Because everybody knows Oregon has been wanting a defense for a while. They've always had good offensive output, and Lanning is really tightening up that defense. I mean, they made the stops when they had to make the stops. He showed a lot of aggression. They're playing, wide open, and I think it was a tough place to play going in that environment, and to lose by 1 point, really go toe to toe with them. I do think you got a point about Ryan Day and his end of the game, thought processes. And again, you said it best. He called the plays against Georgia, not last year, year before. You got Chip Kelly calling now, and you got the same outcome, right? So we saw a lot of that this weekend. I mean, South Carolina battles as hard as they did to make a comeback, get the onside kick, and literally move the ball nowhere. It was it's just insane to watch. I couldn't imagine being a Gamecock fan and dealing with it. I
was a little alarmed they were in that position to win that game.
I'm sure they were shocked, right? They probably didn't expect to be there. It was a fantastic onside little drop kick, squibbler. It was amazing. And then to watch it, and he had the whole country behind him, and to watch that ineptitude of trying to get 10 yards, was unbelievable. And I don't want that to happen to Ryan Day. I hope he has if he gets in that position again, he has better look at it, because, those one-score games, that last possession game, as time's running out, to lose them, it will become a problem, because it became a problem for Mark Richt. He was the same way, great coach, but he could not do it when it came down to those one-score games. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen today, but they certainly have a great football team in my mind.
I feel as passionate about them and their talent as Urban Meyer had with Michael Thomas and those guys the year they won the first BCS championship. No one would listen to me going into that semifinal against Alabama. And Bama was favored by 11.5, 12 points, according to what market you were looking at. But I'd watched Ohio State play all year long, and I felt like they matched up very well with Alabama, and they won and then beat Oregon, of all teams, in the national championship. So I do expect that they'll make a deep run. They're my pick to win the national championship. There's a whole lot of football left to be played. We have to get to that, but I have to go down memory lane with you.
One other thing, I would love to go watch a game out there in Oregon. Though. I got to make that on my bucket list. We got to that would be a great place to go watch some football. But anyway, the
bucket list I have is sitting beside you in the national championship game this year with Georgia and Ohio State. That's the bucket list.
Be amazing. That would be amazing.
One of us would be, extremely happy when the night's over. That's the good thing.
I think if we spent a game together in the national championship, we'd be happy either way. We'd be disappointed, but we'd be happy.
Yeah, because I felt like Saturday night that game was played at a high level. If I see high level football, I'm usually pretty happy. If I'm seeing teams out of rhythm, a lot of penalties, and just where the game just doesn't, the referees are sort of taking over, whether or not they need to or not. It was like that with the Jets and the Bills on the Monday Night Football game. I don't want that. I want to see high level football played, and then I leave there feeling pretty well despite anything. It's like I tell people, The American League Championship Series is so important to me. I've told people all my life, if the Yankees don't win the American League Championship Series, I consider this season a failure. Friends have said, "Man, that's highly lofty, standards." But that's just how I feel. I'm okay if they make the World Series and they lose, but they better at least get the American League pennant. But we'll wait and see. I want to pick games with you, but first I want to go down memory lane with you. And I was living in South Carolina on what was January 2nd, 1984, I believe, instead of January 1st. Auburn had just eliminated Georgia from national championship contention with a victory in Athens. The Bulldogs say that. They have no problem admitting that was 13-7 and really wasn't that close. Georgia got a late touchdown. They got the onside kick also. But Clarence K was the guy who scored the touchdown for the Bulldogs. You remember him?
I do remember him.
Clarence K, yeah.
Clarence K.
K, yeah, Clarence K, like a tight end, like a huge guy. Anyway, yeah. So Auburn was playing that night in the Sugar Bowl against Michigan, and Auburn people thought if Georgia defeats Texas, the only team Auburn lost to during the year, Auburn was going to win the national championship if Miami beat Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, because Nebraska was supposedly the greatest football team ever. But everything fell in line. You don't want Miami to blow out Nebraska, because then people would say, give the national championship to Miami. Miami beat them 31-30. Auburn struggled, but they beat Michigan 9-7. They went to bed thinking they'd won the national championship, because during the day, John Lastinger kept the ball in like an option run, went 17 yards for a touchdown. Video is not great on YouTube, but from the fact that this is 1984 and it was a beautiful thing. And I remember being a little kid in South Carolina just running around yelling, how about them dogs? How about them dogs for like 4 or 5 hours? Because we thought, with an Auburn win, Auburn was going to win the national championship. As it turned out, they jumped Auburn in the polls. Miami, despite Auburn had the hardest schedule in the country that year too. I should throw in that. And they made Auburn and Miami play the next year in the Kickoff Classic in the first game of the year to try to throw a bone to Auburn, and gave Auburn the preseason #1 team. But they gave the national championship to Snellenberger and Miami for that win. And NBC played a role in that, Danny, because they kept saying, Don Criqui kept saying all night, this is the game for the national championship. Well, it was certainly for Nebraska. But then most of the voters started hearing that, and the game was so good, and Miami won. On their home field, by the way, by 1 point, 31-30. But my memory is that Georgia-Texas game, and Georgia, I thought, represented themselves so well, because here was a team that was the year after Herschel Walker, and the expectations were a lot less for that Georgia team that had been in the previous 3 years, and they had a heck of a season, and they sent those seniors out well by beating Texas and ending Texas's chances at the national championship in Texas's backyard in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas.
Well, being a special teams player that I got to be for my first couple of years when I played football on the punt team, how Georgia got the ball back. The game was over. The game was over. Georgia had lost. They got the ball back on a muff punt. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know that. So we kick. We have to punt, as usual with Georgia playing the punting game, trying to play the, percentages.
Field position.
Yeah. Field position, the percentages. Dooley kicks to him, thinking he could stop them with the junkyard dogs, and they fumble. We get it. And that's when Lastinger makes the play you called. I don't want to call it an option. Sort of a little end around, and makes him dives right in the corner and gets in there. So,
yeah, he gets tackled. He probably gets tackled about the 2, but he got in the end zone, and they would have had a great chance even if he doesn't get in the end zone. There was 3 minutes was still left in the game, but that was the game, and it got a little bit of a memory when the two teams met each other in the the Sugar Bowl, 2019, the Georgia Texas game. I guess it got a little play and people thought about it, but I remember that day and just being so excited that Georgia had won, because Texas had beat Auburn. It's strange that they even played that year, that Texas and Auburn even played that year, but Texas had beat Auburn 20-7 in Auburn, and then Georgia gets their shot at them and takes them out. I got to ask you, have you accepted Texas and Oklahoma as true SEC teams yet, or is it still a bit just too new?
No, I do. I think they're good fits so far in the conference. I mean, they've both always been powerhouse teams. Everybody, when you think SEC, you think powerhouse teams. You think about it back there. how many times did Auburn used to ruin a good Georgia season, or even vice versa? Sometimes Georgia
Sure.
ruined a good Auburn season. I'm looking forward to y'all getting back to that one of these days. But
It might be a bit.
yeah, but I mean, it's just one of those kind of conferences, and I think they fit in well so far with it. And certainly Texas is, showing out over there. So hopefully the Dogs can do something to change that a little bit this weekend to welcome them.
And we don't know. There's a lot of football left to be played, but this could be the first of two meetings between these two teams. We just don't know how the standings will end up being once it's all said and done.
Well, I think I'm eager. I haven't done enough looking at it to see. I know how the seeding goes and where they'll be positioned, but I guess just basically based off the rankings, they could all meet again.
That's exactly right. Let's get into it. Let's give the folks some winners. Hey, you might as well say hello to Donnie Laney. We know that he watches each week, and
I did just want to say, I'm sure when Donnie watches the episode, he's going to be very upset that we talked so much about Ohio State. So.
The guy, he either hates me or he hates the Buckeyes. One or the other. I hadn't figured out.
I think it's the Buckeyes. I don't think he hates you, man. He is, for some reason, he cannot stand Ohio State Buckeyes. Maybe he's a Big Ten, anti-Big Ten. I don't know. I can't stand Penn State. Can't stand James Franklin. So I certainly hope Ohio State beats them and gets them out of that. That's just making me sick.
If Ohio State doesn't, Ohio State's let me down all my life. In 1993, I remember them being undefeated. They had one tie, and they went to they were ranked like number 4 in the country. One of the teams they were ranked behind was an undefeated Auburn team who wasn't going to. They were eligible for the AP national championship, but not for the other national championship because they were on probation. The day Auburn beat Alabama, Ohio State was playing Michigan. I'm watching it from my apartment, and it's 21-0 in the first half, Michigan. And I'm like, what is going on here? And Michigan shut them out that day. Michigan had like Ty Law and, those guys, 28-0 to me. Look, Ohio State has let me down many a football game. And then they've given some great moments too. They pulled out a Rose Bowl against Arizona State, Joe Germain, who was from Arizona, in the final few seconds, and that played a role in getting apart halfway split national championship. So it goes, sports fan, your teams, you live and die with them and all. I'm the same way with the Yankees, a lot of ways with Auburn. Certainly that way. Had very little expectations about Auburn this year, and Auburn's had problems, and that's why I said I still think we're a bit away from Auburn. That is, from being in those contention. Let's start. Oklahoma State and Brigham Young, and choose well, because Donnie, if you miss one or two, Donnie's going to let you know about it. So, but Brigham Young was too physical for Arizona. Will they be too physical for Oklahoma State, favored by 8.5?
Yeah, I think we both started off the season sort of on BYU and didn't expect them to be. I didn't expect them to be this good. I thought they'd be pretty good, but they have really done well, coming in 6-0, playing great on defense. I think they're 15th in the nation on defense. So you got Gundy coming in, man. They looked horrible.
He's a mess.
It seems right now. It's just unbelievable how bad he's lost that thing. But
last year they were in the Big 12 championship game, running behind, Olive Gordon, who's back, the running back, and yet their numbers are just so down. So I do think BYU is going to be too much for them defensively, and I'll take BYU in 8.5. I'm also, with my record here of late, changing, and I'm going to do like a good old Georgia boy, and go with the percentages. And against the spread, and BYU is perfect 6-0, obviously, against the spread. And I'm gonna stick with that and say they're 7-0. And I didn't say your overall record, and I won't, but I will say
don't have to bring it up. I got to make a comeback.
You're 3-4 and 5 stars, but you're going with your 5-star here right off the bat too with the Cougars.
I do. I got to feel it. I think that's the best way to go with it. It's the one I feel the best about. I will tell you a little funny story. You're asking one of my supervisors that works for me at UPS. He's a big time Cowboys fan. Bless his heart. He's from Texas and moved here. And I was just going through what we were, our picks before I sent him in. I said, what do you think about these? Because it's sort of funny how when you start getting in going the wrong way a little, you want to ask around, And he's like, man, let me tell you something, Dave. And I had picked, I actually had gone with the Ole Miss, which would have been bad too, because my 5-star last week. is what I thought was for sure. But he said, you got to go with the Commodores, man. Washington is killing it, or the New York Skins, the Redskins. He's like, I said, are you sure? He said, that is the best. That's the 5-star of all 5 stars. You got to change it. And that's why I went with that one. So that's my one loss. I'm like, or the one last week, I lost my 5. I was like, so I just texted him. I said, man, I'll never ask you again. But
hey, it's not as easy
Cowboys.
It's
Cowboys
got it looks. Yeah,
and then the Cowboys got wasted. That's why I texted him. I said, man, they're running trick plays on y'all. They ran like 5 trick plays against the Cowboys. But we'll keep going. I'll keep talking.
And these picking games are not as easy as it looks. Although little credit to Scott Van Pelt, who was about 15, 18 games under 500 a couple of weeks ago. He's pretty close to 500, if not right at 500. So, yeah, he's had 2 good weeks. Louisville's at home, and they're catching 3.5. They're plus 3.5 against Miami. How do you see it?
I see that as an odd line. You know me, I get hung up in lines sometimes. I mean, you got Louisville coming in. They've looked, even in their wins, they've struggled. I don't see why it's not bigger, and I know they're going to Louisville, but I mean, you got undefeated Miami coming in with quarterback plays amazing. But I just think with the 3.5 is not enough. There's some reason behind it. I'm going Louisville. I'm going to take Louisville plus 3.5 and hope they somehow win by a field goal.
This may make you feel better.
Don't lose by more than a field goal.
This may make you feel better. Our good friend Kevin White is 1-6 in 5 stars, and his 5-star pick for this week's Miami, Florida minus 3.5. So that might make you feel better. He's 1-6.
So he's going there. Okay. Well, I will say again with the spread, against the spread, Louisville is 3-2, and they're beating the spread by about 3. Miami's only covering the spread by 7. So you do the math, it's close. I'm going with Louisville.
Yeah. The next game is Auburn at Missouri. Missouri favored by 6.5, and this is my 5-star. I'm going to go with Auburn. I thought long and hard about this. Thought about going back to the New York Jets, which have let me down, but I'm going to go with Auburn coming off the bye week. The quarterback play was a little bit better in Athens. I felt like talking about representing themselves, I felt like they represented themselves well. They fought for 4 quarters, lost to a better football team. I believe they can play Missouri competitively if they get fortunate and limit the turnovers that were killing them prior to the game against Georgia. They may even leave that Columbia, Missouri, with a victory. So give me Auburn plus 6.5, and I believe you agree with me.
I do agree with you. I think Auburn's been doing pretty well. They've only, they're 3-3 against the spread. So is Mizzou. But Mizzou is underwhelming. They're about -5 under the spread they're getting. And that matches up pretty well with the math. I like Auburn. I think you've played better than your record shows. And you got to get out of some of the nonsense. I think this is the time to do it. And I really think that Missouri's looked pretty bad, to be honest with you. After looking like world beaters to start with, they've looked sort of rough here lately. So I'm hoping that you get that win and actually come out of that with the win, not just cover.
If it's the 3rd Saturday in October, it means Alabama and Tennessee are playing each other this year in Knoxville. They've played for years and years and years in Birmingham, playing in Knoxville. Alabama favored by 3 on the road.
I don't like Alabama. I think everybody knows that. I try not to let my personal feelings get involved with it. And after the first quarter debacle, we haven't talked since that really, or at least not about football. They look not good at all. I mean, they don't look like the ranking they've gotten. Tennessee also has not looked great. Nico's been missing this passes. His completion percentage is not good. So I think you got 2 teams sort of looking to find an identity here and realize, are they going to be as good as they think or not? And I think when you got 2 teams doing that, you got to give Tennessee the advantage being at home, and that place gets wild. So 3:30 kick, good prime kicks. They'll have plenty of time to get good and liquored up with the moonshine. So I think it's going to be a wild crowd. I'm going Tennessee, and I'm taking 3.
You got it. My next pick is in this game. We're opposite in Atlanta. Notre Dame favored by 8.5 on the road against an improved Georgia Tech team. I always think about when Notre Dame plays at Georgia Tech. I believe it was 1980, the year that Georgia wins the national championship. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech played Georgia Tech was awful. I don't know if they won a game. Maybe they won one game. They beat Memphis, maybe, or something. But Notre Dame and Georgia Tech tied that year 3-3 in Atlanta. That's why Notre Dame had no chance to win the national championship when they played Georgia, because their ranking was like seventh, because they'd gotten slaughtered by SC as well in the last game of the year. But I think about that game when Notre Dame and Georgia Tech do battle now. I think Notre Dame, I think they get past this number of 8.5. I think they better start worrying about the service academies that they usually play each year, the Navies and the Armies. But I think that Saturday they come out of this and they escape Atlanta. You do like Georgia Tech with those 8.5 points, though.
I do. I think you can get the home, a little home field advantage. That's odd that they're doing it in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I don't know what's up with all the neutral site games, but it's fun, good for the sport. But I do think even with that, they can get a good home crowd in there. Georgia Tech's on a roll. I mean, I'm impressed with what Key's been doing over there. And Notre Dame, obviously, is great. I mean, this is sort of one I didn't go with it. Both of them are, I think both of them are 60% or better against the spread. And then Notre Dame's beating the spread by about 9 points. So this is going to go one of two ways. Tech's going to keep it close like they have a lot of their games and pull off a nice win, a miracle at the end like they did last week. Or, I'm going to look really foolish picking them, and it's going to be about a 17-point win by Notre Dame. But I like the Jackets here, man. I think the defense is good, and I think they can slow down Notre Dame just enough.
Okay. Michigan and Illinois are playing each other in very small line here. Michigan favored by 1.5 at Illinois. Michigan needed a field goal a couple of years ago when Illinois had the running back Chase Brown, and Harbaugh was really bringing Michigan around and getting close to winning that national championship game. He needed a late score to defeat Illinois. That game was in Ann Arbor. This time they're in Champaign. I'm going to take the Fighting Illini plus 1.5. You are with me, but the other three guys of the panel, John, Stormy, and Kevin, all go opposite. They all go with Michigan.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't know. I mean, again, obviously Michigan's the story program, of course, and they just haven't had it this year. They just go to show. Everybody keeps saying, "Let's go for them," right? You want them to. Everybody wants them to be good. Everybody wants the big Michigan-Ohio State showdown. I just don't think they got it this year. I mean, they're 1-5 against the spread, and they're losing to the spread by almost 7 points. And we got a spread here that's 1.5. I'm going Illinois, and I'm taking the 1.5. I take Illinois to win the game.
I think Michigan still has elite players like Graham on the defensive line, Will Johnson in the defensive backfield, the tight end, Colson Lovelady. Still but they don't have the depth that they've had the last few years. Let's just kind of skip over LSU because everybody likes LSU, favored by 2.5. I'm not taking it, but Danny, Kevin, John, and Stormy are. Or take 15 seconds and tell me what you think the key is in this game with LSU favored by 2.5.
No, I mean, I think the key when they go in there is they're going to have to continue with the past game they've had, and I think they'll be able to score on Arkansas. Arkansas has been playing really good defense in my mind. I think they've sort of righted the ship, but I don't think it's enough. I just think that LSU is going to come off that victory, the comeback against Ole Miss, and I think it'll propel them to really perform the way I think everybody thought they could to start the season. So I'll take LSU minus 2.
When you said that Arkansas defense playing well, everybody's time comes to an end as far as whether ends good or wins bad. So whenever Hugh Freeze's time is up at Auburn, I think they're going to look at that current defensive coordinator at Arkansas, the former Auburn Tiger, T. Will, the former Auburn player, and I think that's going to be your next head coach at Auburn. We've got about 5 minutes remaining.
Okay, we'll go quick.
Let's get to the Georgia-Texas game. Everybody's on. I'm not going to take it, but I'll be pulling for Georgia. But everybody's got Georgia, but Stormy, he's got Texas, and I think that's just because he doesn't like Georgia, to be honest with you.
Well, and again, I see that shows you, and I know Stormy likes to mock me a little bit in text every now and then. That's okay. But I can put that aside, like I told you, and I picked Georgia Tech, which I know that's his team, and he can't put it aside, but that's okay. The keys to the game, Anthony, are Georgia's got to run the ball. I rewatched the Texas-Oklahoma game last night. It was on. I watched it again, and Oklahoma really did a great job running the ball, went away from it. I have no idea why. I mean, of course, you get down a few scores, but even when it was 0-0, they're still running it well. Then they just start trying to throw it. And Carson Beck is way better than that kid that Oklahoma has at quarterback. We run the ball the first quarter the way that Oklahoma did in the first quarter against Texas, then I think we're going to set the stage for the game, and you'll see the Georgia you need. Like I told you, we don't need to throw the ball 48 times. We need to run the ball. I'm going to put on my T-shirt that's going to have on RTDB. I think everybody knows what that stands for. Run the, you know what?
Yes. In the NFL, the Seahawks are playing in Atlanta. I want to say everybody, including myself, has taken the Falcons -2.5. The Rams and the Raiders are playing each other. You've got the Rams -5. I'll run down everybody else's picks. I went with the Rams -5. I'll skip to the Jets. You and I are on the Jets +1.5 at the Steelers. And so is Kevin. John and Stormy both have the Steelers -1.5. And then I want you to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl rematch before I run all the picks down. I've got the 49ers -1.5. You've got the Chiefs +1.5. We're very split on this. John and Stormy agree with you with the Chiefs, and Kevin's with me with the 49ers -1.5. Taylor Swift was at Yankee Stadium last night with Travis Kelce because he's a Cleveland baseball fan. So even though they've got a football game coming up, he made time to New York to take in the Yankees in Cleveland.
Well, we got a few minutes. I'm going to go quick with the Falcons. I jumped on the Falcons bandwagon. They finally got me. I just want the win, man. That's all the reason I'm pulling for. On the Chiefs and the 49ers, I don't know how you can stop the Chiefs right now, man. And I don't understand this spread. I think the Chiefs are going into this game perfect, and they're going to leave the game perfect. Purdy has not been – he did okay, but he's not where he's been. This is not the Super Bowl teams playing each other. This is the Chiefs in prime time, and I think they're gonna show you that they are the best team out of these two.
All right. Let me run down the picks. I'm 17-15 on the year, 3-4 5 stars, 5-3 in soccer. I've got one soccer play. That's the over 2.5 in Aston Villa and Fulham. They need to combine for 3 or more goals. My 5-star is Auburn +6.5. I go with Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, putting the Dukes up -8.5, and the Fighting Illini of Illinois +1.5. In the NFL, I've got the Atlanta Falcons -2.5, the Rams -5, the 49ers -1.5, and the New York Jets +1.5. Danny is 32-41. He's 3-4 though with 5 stars. And his 5 stars Brigham Young -8.5. He's got Louisville +3.5, Auburn +6.5, Tennessee +3, Georgia Tech +8.5, Illinois +1.5. He goes with LSU -2.5, and the Georgia Bulldogs +3.5. In the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons -2.5. Los Angeles Rams -5, the Kansas City Chiefs +1.5 in the rematch of that Super Bowl, and then he's with me with the New York Jets +1.5. John, 36-37. That's actually pretty good at these standards these days. 1-6 though in the 5 stars. He's got Oklahoma State +8.5, Miami of Florida -3.5, Missouri -6.5. Alabama -3, Notre Dame -8.5, Michigan -1.5, LSU -2.5, Georgia +3.5. His 5 stars, the Falcons -2.5, the Rams -5, the Chiefs +1.5, and the Steelers -1.5. Stormy's 36-37, 3-4 in his 5 stars. Because of time considerations, I'm just going to tell you his 5 stars, Texas -3.5. Jake will roll the rest of his picks. Kevin's 33-40, 1-6 in 5 stars. His 5 stars, Miami of Florida -3.5, and Jake will roll the rest of his picks at the end. Danny, I want to thank you for coming in and joining me here. I'm talking with Tony. I had a great time.
Me too. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to have you. And all I can say is go Dogs, man. We need this one bad.
For Jake Barton and Danny Arp, I'm Tony Jones. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.